In this breakdown, we are going to go over another high retention beat, proven to work, 2.3 million views. This one's by Just Dan. There's a lot of reasons this beat is successful. The thumbnail's amazing. It's like very disturbing, eye-catching. That always works well. It's on brand with the type of stuff that Just Dan, his audience enjoys and what they follow him for. And then the music is it's dope. Simply put, it's good. It's very high retention, and he does it. So in the first breakdown, we did the Producer X style one. This is a cool approach because it's sample based. I don't know, but like, let's say a person doesn't have some of the skills that Producer X has to make the high retention music. That's not a problem, because what you can do instead, you can sample. We'll listen to it, and I'll kind of mostly just listen to it the first time, and then we'll go and I'll break down the structure, and then I'll get into the nitty gritty details. I did a near perfect remake as well. This one's probably super close, like exact drum sounds, like matching up the waveforms, which same as the Ascension beat, the first beat we broke down. I'll be including the stems and the files and all the sounds is for you guys to download so that you have the exact ones. But even more important than the exact sounds, I'm gonna tell you where the sounds come from and how to think about getting the sounds, and they all come from the same place. So let's play it and we'll talk about it as we go.
When I think of you,
Insane sample.
my heart remembers all the love we've ever had, all the love we've ever had.
So notice how this intro hasn't looped at all. It's fresh. Like, I'm like, when is it going to drop? And then I'm also like, I don't really care when it drops, because it's like the intro is so dope. So that's how you hook people with the intro.
Just me and you.
And that's all in sample selection. I've heard that like people like this, they'll take days because they maybe can't do these on their own. And I don't know what Just Dan's situation is, but I know there's a lot of producers like that. Because they can't write all this stuff on their own, they have to find the right tools, and they have to like be having that vision as they're searching for samples.
When I think of you, I
See, that's a new,
remember springtime.
that low end we haven't gotten yet. It makes the intro continue to evolve, even though we still haven't gotten. We're 39 seconds in, 40 seconds in. I'm not bored at all.
Just me and you.
Still interesting to me.
When I think of you, think of you, think of you.
And I would say right there, if he didn't change something, I was gonna get bored. But then you're like, he chops, think of you, think of you, think of you. And then, yeah, the beat comes in. Another switch up. So none of this has been like repetitive yet. Constantly evolving. Switch up, sample switch up. Do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do. Another thing I want to mention is check out all that space for the rapper. Notice how he didn't overdo it. A lot of people like need to have all these crazy hi-hat rolls, need to have all these kicks. So I know this is like the high retention music, but I also want to point out the rappability, because our entire goal is to make sales, and this is what leads to it. So because the sample's like bunch of chop, kind of the vocals a little more busy, he does a good job filtering that so that it kind of cancels out. But for that reason, he doesn't have the drums go crazy. Like, they're actually almost unbelievably simple and an unbelievable amount of space when it comes to the drums. I'll show you at the end how he sets up his mixing so that even though the sample's busy, it really carves out a space for the artist. It's that perfect combination of the evolving structure, interesting, and then the space for the artist. Switch up, I haven't heard all those elements together like that yet.
Just me and you.
And then it's over. So it's like, I bet I bet the watch time on that is like 80%. I bet it's like 150. And so YouTube is like, this is a great video. Almost everyone who watches it, one, they like it, they comment, and they almost watch the whole thing. So, like, it is a really good beat, but it's gonna like send all the signs to YouTube that it is a very strong beat. Let's see. Yeah, 53 seconds. You get the drop at 53 seconds. You're for sure staying till like right there. That's like already like a 70% watch time. So I have a breakdown coming of a beat, and I can show you these metrics on the back end and show you how this retention works. I'm not just talking here. Like I have, I think 60 or 70,000 views on that one, and you can see how 70,000 people responded on average, and we'll go in and break down. So I'm sure this looks like phenomenal. Of like out of the 2.3 million people that clicked, I bet the average view duration is about 80% of the beat, which is phenomenal. Think of how many beats that you listen through all the way, like without skipping, like probably not that many. So first thing, when I hear this one, my first thought is like, okay, where's the music come from? Like, did he make this? Does he make samples? So the first thing that I'll do, let's see. I'll just start listening to the lyrics. When I think of... I'm like, that's enough. And I remember I saw this, the Dreamliners, me and you. And then I listen. There it is. When I think of you. So I just found that by typing in lyrics, made a few clicks. It's not always that easy, but that one was that easy. Sometimes it takes digging. Sometimes you got to search lyrics. Sometimes you got to like listen for keywords. Sometimes you got to like go check in the YouTube and see if there's something like this. Sometimes like that'll give away the samples. Okay, so then I download the sample. So now we know like it has that sample. Let's do another listen. What I'm going to do on this listen is we're going to be talking about the music. We're really going to dive into specifics on this one. So last time, kind of the bird's eye view on the structure and the arrangement and like how it worked, almost from like a first time listen. And this one will be like, I'll dive into a little more detail. Then after that, we'll do my full breakdown exactly. And I'm going to do like the most like in-depth, like micro details. When I think of you. So first thing I hear that RC Color vinyl noise. When I think of you. So that's like exaggerated. You can hear that. I think of you. It's also filtered and pitched. Like if we So, when I think of you, and this is the original. This is just Dan's beat. My heart remembers all the love we've ever had, all the love we've ever had. Like he really just lets the sample play out. But what he does here. So that's the first thing he added is, and you can see it in the audio waveform, is that big bass. Boom. And it's not big, it sounds big because he does so little. He keeps it so minimal. So it's like when you keep things minimal, I think about the West Coast beats a lot, like DJ Mustard. He just has that like Moog synth bass, and then the kick and the snap sounds so loud. And that's why. Because it's like 1/3 of the beat. But then when you add like 50 elements, each element is like 1/50th of the beat. So it sounds smaller. Just following the bass notes. And to be honest, I wouldn't even be surprised if some of these are like the wrong notes. And he just loops it. So BWB drums, big white beats. If you're not familiar, look it up. If you do hip hop and you look up big white beats, you're gonna be like, that's every drum sound for the last 10 years. Big white beats, like his OG kit. There's the kick. There's another one. Snares are like, but yeah, I'm getting too much into the details. But so like that's like the biggest drop, and like I'm gonna show you exactly how he did that too. It's pretty dope. That's a whole new section. So think of you, think of you, think of you. The chops right here. He just loops it the whole time. Then he pitches them up an octave right here and filters them. So like these sections are completely different. And as far as like common pop structure, I promise you he's not overthinking this. He is just literally doing whatever he wants, what he thinks sounds cool. So this isn't like a common structure. He is completely breaking the rules here, and it's really dope, honestly. Like he couldn't care less about, oh, is that a 4-bar loop into, oh, I need a perfect 16-bar intro. He did a 18-bar intro, which is unusual. And then it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, what is that? 3, 1, 2. Yeah, 5 bars. And then what's this one? 4, 5 bars, 4 on the switch up. I think that's 5 again. That's insane. So I think that's... So 4.5. And then what's this? Is this 4? And then 4. So like there's no rules here. Then this one is 4.5, and then the outro is 1, 2, 3.5, 3.25, or 3 and... Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like, don't overthink this. Like, don't try to imitate this. Like, the way you would imitate this is just do whatever you want. Like, oh, that sounds cool. Oh, transition here. Like, don't think too, because I promise, like, it's not made like that. So when you want to learn from these people, you want to kind of put your, like, think like they're thinking, not copy and paste what they did, if that makes sense. So, but yeah, so we got to switch up here in the chops, and then... But there's no bass this whole section. There is the kick. Boom, boom. Then that's a switch up because that bass and the open hat comes in. So he switches up with the drums and the low end. And see how this works for high retention music, because this is a little different. The first beat we went over is going to have like more, I don't know, like pop structure that you would hear on the radio kind of. This is kind of like random and sporadic. And that's also why it works, because if you're watching a show or something, or just any like form of entertainment, as soon as it gets predictable, you're out. But you also want some structure too, because if you're confused, you're out. And if it's predictable, you're out. What Just Dan does a good job of using, whether it's on purpose or not, to keep your attention here is the unpredictability. There's a bunch of contrast. I mean, so like, it's a ton of contrast, like from low to high, but no low end other than the kick. Now the bass comes in and the open hat, like that's a lot of contrast. And then he switches up the sample chops here. So that, like, that's a big contrast too. So like it's just different ways of contrast, and like you can do that in your own style, however you want. And then he brings in that like the vocal harmony section with the remember lyrics. And then back to like this, the standard, like kind of the standard pitch and everything. And then you're done. Like there was no boring sections in that at all. It was kind of unpredictable, predictable enough that like you understood it and you could rap on it. But it's like, yeah, really interesting idea. And I think that's kind of like the overall structure. And like I said, I think I mentioned that earlier, great for retention. Now let's get into the details of exactly how it was done. What he did to start it off is he pitched it down. So original pitch.
When I
Let's see, this would be like original.
think of you.
The tempo's a little different, but
When I think of you.
he switches up the tempo a little bit, and then boom. He pitched it down, and I kind of did like some sense. I changed the adjusted the sense like a little bit. Like the semitone is the main one, and then the sense is like more dialed in pitch change. 100 cents make up a semitone, so this is normal.
When I think of you.
I know he used RC color,
My heart remembers.
and it cuts out a lot of the lows, a lot of the highs. In hindsight, I think he might have done one of the magnitude transitions, which is like a different setting. I don't know. I knew it was RC color. Everyone uses RC color. There's only like a handful of things that people use. They either use like the vinyl presets or like the magnitude transition presets, which I'll show you a little bit later. But yeah, it's like you get the reverb, you cut out like, you EQ it, you cut out all the space, you get that vinyl noise that I was talking about earlier, you get like distortion, you kind of shrink it. It's like, it makes it sound worse. Everyone uses it because it's a great tool. So by the way, let me just do like a A/B of his.
Think of you, 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 think of you.
So, yeah, pretty close, nearly identical. I could have dialed it in a little more when it comes to some mixed stuff. I think I could have dialed in some of these a little more. I think it was like the RC color presets that aren't perfect, but it's like, it's good enough that you can get the thought process behind it. And that's the most important thing. Don't spend too much time like trying to get that stuff, like when you're imitating like that, to get it perfect. So,
When I think of you.
yeah, so that's when the first bass note comes in.
I think of you. I remember springtime. That was when we fell in love. That was when we fell in love. Just me and you.
I do think that he chopped, at least the way I looked at it, is he chopped this section from
Me and you. Me and you.
so it seems like he chopped that because like it was because that's what the sample did. So
When I think of you, think of
if
you,
you
think
think
of you, think of you, think of you, think of you, think of you, think of you.
so, that was pretty like simple. Just like
I think of
I would just take this section, boom, boom, boom.
you, think of you, think of you, think of you, think of
The bass line's easy,
you.
like so simple. It's trillion, just the most straightforward bass. It's not anything. Clean Fender mute. And it's just like there's nothing fancy to it. It's just like one bass note,
Think of you,
and it just like rings out.
think of you, think of you, think of you, think of you.
It's probably the same one, honestly. Like he probably used trillion. I don't know for sure, but it gets the job done. So like there's not just one way to do it. Like he could have used any bass and it wouldn't have mattered. So
Think of you, think of you, think of you, think
this is the chops, which is like
of you.
pretty like he just chops it. So it goes from like in the way that the first beat that we broke down, it's went from like this evolving chord progression. It just now it's just like when the beat drops, it lives on this chord.
Think of you,
Dun,
think
dun,
of you, think of you,
Dun, 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 dun. He does an interesting like reverse thing. Like this is very creative in left field. You got to be careful doing this stuff. This is not your style, go do something else, because like it's very cool. You got to have the balance of rappability, and this one absolutely does. I'm just saying, be careful with this. Like, don't get too weird. And so what he did is it's crazy. He stacked that. And then he stacked that other part. And he just took it, he pitched up an octave from that intro. So he just took that, and then he made the beat with like he might have even done like, it almost feels like something like, but somehow with like the width of it, there might be something there where it's like, there's something. He also might make it wide. Nah, there's something there though. But so yeah, and the bass is like very simple. Like he's just doing it by ear. It's dope that it like a lot of producers would have like this come in right away, like drop right like that. But he like, it allows for it to progress more, and kind of how I talked about in the last one, that he didn't drop it all right away. Like he didn't take everything he had and give it to you right away, because then you're done. Like, why would they hang around if you just gave them everything all at once? And then the drums are like, it's interesting how they're structured, but when they're going, they're very simple. Oh, and something, once again, triplet on this one. So that's kind of like a pattern with some of this newer hip hop stuff. Triplet. And then good job like with the arrangement of like keeping it interesting. Like you don't know what's gonna happen next. And then the kick is like, so these are all BWB stuff. It's the so like this is so common. And you can see these are actually the same kick drum. One's just clipped and one's not. So boom. Yeah, I'll show you. So big white beats. It's definitely just this kick, or this one actually. Yeah, it's definitely that one. It's like everyone uses it all the time. And then the hats, I just typed in BWB. I have a lot of the BWB kits. I was like, yeah, that's the hat. And then I also found showing browser. Yep, it was Waves R Us. That's the snare rim. Like that is without a doubt. So that's his. Without a doubt, same pitch and everything. And the key thing here is how loud they are. Like look at how loud the snare. That's the music right there. That's the snare. So and then you'll notice like all this space right here, like see how quiet the music is relative to it? That's one of the biggest mistakes I see beginners, producers make. They don't leave space for the artist, and look at all that space right there. That's why people can rap on it. It's just a mixing thing. You'll see Boy One to talk about this. I don't know. I think like the whole mixing like industry is equivalent to the supplement industry in fitness, where they make you think you need all this stuff to sound good, and you really don't. It's like turn your mix down, pick good sounds right here, and then crank up your drums. Like your drums are the loudest thing. So that leaves space for the artist. And like the bass too, because like that's not in the vocal range. Like this sample right here is 100% in the vocal range. Listen, think of you, think of you, think of you. So that's why it has to be quiet, like -15. And then my kick is 5.3, like positive. I'm cranking it. And beats like this, no one cares about clipping. It's part of the sound, actually. Once again, don't be so like precious about your sound, but like that's how you get your kick to sound like that. If you have it down here, it sounds too clean. So just crank it. But yeah, so yeah, all that space. And then like just to show you how close this remake is, and not just like how close it is, but that I tackle the same things here as far as spacing for the artist. Like you'll see once. His are even a little quieter than mine. See, you can see that even I have the sample a little bit louder than him. You could have done it either way, and the beat would be probably just as successful, in my opinion. All that space is where the artist goes, and then just have the kick and the snare. And you can see that's an example as well of like one identical waveform, and then because this one doesn't clip and this one does clip, it's why it's the same kick but looks different and sounds different. And then this also has the bass note, so it's like it's really pushing the volume ceiling, that 0 dB ceiling. But yeah, it's cool how he uses that high pitched like, and that's a trick I've done plenty of times is like take in parts of the sample and then cut out the lows and use it as like a vocal later in the beat. And it's a pretty creative way to do like unique stuff. And also like he's getting very creative with this. So like this is just, if I reverse it. Oh. Okay. So so now I reverse all that. So that's a really creative technique, but like remember there's like these aren't gonna be so random. Like all it is that part reverse. You'll find clues in the other parts of the beat. Assume if you're like learning from someone, assume they did the simplest thing possible when it sounds crazy, because that's usually is the case. I've said this in the last breakdown. It's always simpler than you think, always. And then so these ones, this is the magnitude transition sample, or sorry, preset, and I changed a few things. I took off the noise because like once I had a couple of them stacked, like I didn't want more noise, but it's literally just the same thing, an octave up, as you can see right here. No bass for this whole section, and then he just lets the drums ride. So it's like this section was basically copy and paste and pitched up, and then you lose this. So that's the contrast. Okay. Now the bass comes in, and same with this open hat. Also BWB. It's where everyone gets their drums. Little transition moment. And then it's like all he did was take this, and this is the same thing I'm talking about with Producer X. The first one may have seemed overwhelming, but you're gonna start seeing this stuff over and over and over again. And then there's just like new and creative ways of doing the same thing. So like this way so it flows into the other section from that first section. All he did was like, timing's not gonna be right, but all he does is he probably had like, oh, this would be another section. He's like, I wonder how I could make it transition smoothly, and then he probably just, he's like, oh, that's fire, and probably left it at that. It's probably that simple. And the bass comes in, he's just keeping it crazy simple. He does like random stuff. Like this is like he has this one, this like the rest of this is pitched up an octave from the original one. He actually drops it back to the original and then goes one more octave. So it's like a 2 octave difference. And then he just has that randomly. And then he does the vocal stack again here. And he probably has it filtered a little more than I do. But you can just filter it more. That's all you have to do.
Just me and you.
And then he has it just like brings it back to the standard pitch, and like this is the same pitch as the intro, and basically runs the intro drums over it, and then has a fade out. So very creative. See how like creative the sampling is and like the arrangement. So it accomplishes the same things that I was talking about in the first breakdown, but this one does it less with extra production and does it with sampling instead. And so it's like it's the same core idea of unique, fresh sections every time, evolving arrangement, contrast, but just different ways of doing it, while at the same time dropping into something really simple and rappable like this section. Like there's so much space. Like this is where it is. What a lot of producers would have a hard time. They'd be like, it's not enough. If it was just this loop the whole time, like if you just had it like, if this was your entire beat, and then you had it, and that was the entire beat, I would not be doing a breakdown of it. But because it has this intro evolving sample, then it has this like stacked section of the vocal cut out and layered over top, and then it evolves, and every single section changes, and every section is fresh. So each section by itself is not terribly impressive, but laid out in this way is what makes it high retention music. So it's when you hear a two-step hi-hat and you're like, I know how to do a two-step hi-hat. There's a lot more to it. That stuff, like zoomed out, like I like to close it and like look at this perspective from like a bird's eye. That is the important stuff. And then it's like use good sounds. They're not that hard to find. Everyone uses the same ones, and just structure it better than other people.
Just me and you.
And then the sample does the work on this one. This is just another example of how to make high retention music more sample based. Kanye does this a lot, but Kanye also does the other side. But he has to partner with someone like Mike Dean for that. Depends on what your skill sets are and what kind of sound you like. Like in the first one, I'll have the project files available for you guys to download, and I'll also have the individual drum sounds for you guys. I think that's it. On to the next one.